What was a loophole that you found and exploded the hell out of? My university had this stupid rule where we couldn't have pets in our dorms, not even fish. The punishment was a $500 fine and immediate removal of the animal. But my therapy cat, Luna, helped with my anxiety attacks, and I wasn't about to give her up. Barbara, our dorm supervisor, was absolutely obsessed with enforcing this rule. She had done random room checks for 15 years and bragged about confiscating over 50 pets. She even kept a wall of photos in her office showing all the contraband animals she'd caught, like some twisted trophy collection. My first week, she caught someone with a hamster and made this huge show of calling animal control. While the poor girl sobbed, Barbara just stood there smirking, telling everyone, "Rules are rules, dear." I knew I had to be smart about keeping Luna. So instead of just sneaking her in, spent 3 days reading every single page of the university's housing policies. Most of it was boring stuff about noise levels and trash disposal. But on page 43, I found exactly what I needed. No pets or animals are permitted in university housing facilities unless specifically required for documented medical conditions. The key word was documented. Nowhere did it specify who needed to do the documenting. So, I went to my regular therapist and got her to write an official letter stating that Luna was essential for managing my anxiety. I also printed out research papers about the benefits of emotional support animals. When Barbara burst into my room during a random inspection and saw Luna, her eyes lit up like she'd just won the lottery. Well, what do we have here? She already had her phone out to call animal control. I calmly handed her my folder of documentation. Luna is my registered emotional support animal. Here's all the paperwork. Barbara flipped through everything, her face getting redder by the second. This isn't a service animal. It's just a regular cat. Actually, I pulled out the highlighted policy. The rules only specify animals required for documented medical conditions. They don't mention service animals specifically. My therapist has documented that Luna is medically necessary for my anxiety. Would you like her phone number to verify? Barbara stormed off to call the housing director. An hour later, they both showed up at my door. The director, Mr. Wright, seemed more amused than angry as he reviewed my paperwork. "She's technically correct," he told Barbara. "Our policy doesn't specify what kind of documentation is needed or who needs to provide it. The letter from her licensed therapist meets the requirement." Barbara looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "Then we need to change the policy immediately. We can't." I pulled out another highlighted section. Policy changes affecting current residents cannot be implemented until the following semester. Mr. Wright actually laughed. "In 20 years, you're the first student who's actually read the entire policy manual. Well played." Barbara wasn't done, though. She started doing room checks 3 times a week, trying to catch Luna disturbing other residents. When that didn't work, she claimed my cat litter was a fire hazard. Then she said Luna's food storage violated some obscure cleaning code. The final straw came when other students realized what I'd done. Within 2 weeks, 5 more residents got similar letters from their therapists. By midterms, there were 12 emotional support animals in our building. Barbara completely lost it. She started taking photos of everyone's pets and threatening to report us all to the dean. But the best part, 2 of those photos showed cats sitting on windowsills, a violation of her own precious safety rules about windows being clear of obstruction. Mr. Wright finally stepped in and told her to back off. "If you're going to enforce rules so strictly on students, you need to follow them yourself. Those windowsill photos are evidence of your own violations." The next semester, they completely rewrote the pet policy. Now, it required extensive medical documentation and approval from multiple university departments. The new policy was brutal, 10 pages long, requiring sign-offs from the health center, counseling office, and even campus security. But none of that mattered. Luna and I were already grandfathered in. Barbara, however, didn't let it go. She couldn't stand that her system had been outsmarted, especially by a freshman with a folder of printed-out studies and a cat that wore a pink bow. She'd glare every time she passed my room. Once, she even dropped a passive-aggressive note under my door that read, "You may have won a battle, but rules exist for a reason." I framed it and hung it next to Luna's food bowl. But karma wasn't done with Barbara. One afternoon, few of us were hanging out in the lounge with our support pets when the fire alarm went off. We grabbed our animals and ran outside. Fire trucks arrived, smoke billowing from one of the laundry rooms. No one was hurt, thankfully, but the cause: a malfunctioning outlet, the same one Barbara had been warned about 6 months earlier by maintenance. The same one she'd ignored in favor of hunting cats. Mr. Wright led the investigation, and once it came out that she'd neglected multiple requests to repair the outlet, well, that was the end of her reign. She wasn't fired, but they reassigned her to administrative paperwork. No more room checks, no more trophies. The pet wall in her office came down, replaced by a poster that said, "Be kind. Everyone's fighting a battle you can't see." Oh, the irony. After that, things got quiet, peaceful even. People started decorating their doors with little pet nameplates. Luna became something of a door mascot. She'd wander the halls like she owned them, occasionally curling up outside someone's door if she sensed they were having a rough day. One night, during finals, I found a sticky note taped to my door. "I had a panic attack yesterday and saw your cat outside my room. She stayed with me until I could breathe again. Thank you." No name, just a quiet thank you. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about finding a loophole anymore. It was about creating a little bit of safety, a little bit of warmth, in a place that wasn't always kind. And Barbara? Well, last I heard, she now works in facilities, auditing water usage spreadsheets. Meanwhile, Luna still curls up on my pillow every night, purring like she won something too. My name is Ray, and I'm 31. I work in tech, which basically means everyone in my family assumes I'm some kind of walking ATM. I don't wear flashy clothes, I don't drive anything fancy, and I don't talk about my salary. Mostly because I learned early on that money brings out a very strange side of my family, especially my younger sister, Tasha. Tasha is 26. She's always been the golden child. Not because she earned it, but because she demanded it. She knows how to spin a sob story when she needs help and how to act like a queen when she's getting what she wants. In high school, she was the one who never had to do chores because she needed to focus on her mental health. In college, she dropped out after 2 semesters, then spent the next 5 years finding herself, which mostly meant burning through every savings account my parents opened in her name. When those dried up, she moved back home rent-free. And my mom convinced me it would be just until she's back on her feet. That was 4 years ago. I live about 40 minutes away from them. And honestly, I try to keep some distance. Not because I don't care, but because I learned the hard way that boundaries don't exist in my family. You give a little and suddenly you're expected to give everything. Still, I stayed in touch. I visited when I could. I paid for groceries here and there, fixed things around the house, even helped Tasha with her resume. Not that she ever applied anywhere. Then 2 weeks ago, something happened that I can't get out of my head. I was out with a friend on a Saturday morning grabbing coffee when I got a notification from my bank. A $900 transaction had just cleared. My stomach dropped. I hadn't bought anything close to that price. I opened the app thinking it might be fraud and watched in real time another $1,300 charge go through. Then $600. Then $2,500. All of them from high-end retail stores I didn't shop at. I was staring at the screen like it might explain itself. Then I saw it. All the transactions were tagged as Apple Pay from a location near my parents' neighborhood. I left my coffee half drunk and drove straight to their house. Tasha was on the couch in a silk robe, scrolling through her phone like she'd just finished a spa treatment. Bags from designer brands were scattered all over the living room floor like some kind of tacky influencer unboxing. Shoes, clothes, perfume, the whole spread. I stood there in the doorway, phone in hand, heart pounding in my ears. "Tasha," I said, my voice shaking. "What did you do?" She looked up at me completely unbothered and actually smiled. "Oh, that," she said, as if I'd asked about the weather. "It's not a big deal. You make more than enough. I just needed a few things." A few things. The total was $9,400. She'd somehow gotten hold of my card, or at least the digital version of it, and gone on a spree like she'd won a game show. No remorse, no panic, just smug entitlement. I asked her calmly at first how she even got access. She shrugged. "Mom had your card from when you paid for her prescription last month. I just added it to my phone. Thought you wouldn't mind. You thought I wouldn't mind." She rolled her eyes. Like I was being the difficult one. "You're always acting like money's sacred or something. You live alone, no kids, no mortgage. It's not like you're hurting." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just walked past her into the kitchen where my mom was pretending to not have heard a single word. "Mom," I said quietly, "did you know about this?" She turned, sighing like she'd just been asked to explain algebra to a toddler. "Ray, honey, she made a mistake. You've always been the responsible one. Why are you making this such a big issue? She stole from me. She borrowed it. She didn't mean harm. She didn't ask. She was going to tell you." I laughed. I actually laughed. It was one of those hollow, exhausted laughs that come out when you realize you're alone in a room full of people who will never see your side. Tasha was now filing her nails, like none of this concerned her. Mom started talking about how stressful Tasha's life had been lately and how a little shopping was therapeutic. I left. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I'll handle it." I went home, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at my account for a long time. I knew I could reverse some of it. The banks have fraud protection, but I also knew deep down that this wasn't just about the money. It was about principle. It was about being taken for granted again and again. So I started making a list. Every time I'd helped her out, every time I'd paid for groceries, gas, Uber rides, every digital transaction where I trusted them with my card, every favor that turned into obligation, and then I opened my laptop. The next few hours were quiet but focused. I submitted a fraud report. I shut down every card linked to my digital wallet. I pulled logs from all the recent charges and flagged the ones she'd made. I contacted the stores, disputed what I could, and froze access to all shared payment methods, including the one I knew my mom had been sneakily using to pay off the cable bill. But that wasn't all. I drafted an email to Tasha. Nothing dramatic, just a clear list of what she'd spent, what I'd recovered, and what steps I was taking. Then I drafted another email, this one with a legal tone. I wasn't bluffing.
Okay.
A lawyer friend of mine owed me a favor, and I asked him to write up a formal cease and desist regarding unauthorized access and use of financial accounts. No threats, just professional language and consequences. By midnight, I had both emails scheduled, one for me, one with legal letterhead set to hit her inbox at 8 a.m. Then I sat back, stared at the ceiling, and thought about everything I'd tolerated over the years. The guilt trips, the manipulation, the way they talked about me like I was just lucky to be in a good place financially, as if I hadn't worked every holiday for years, taken night classes, saved, invested, built something on my own. I was done. I went to bed with my phone on silent. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of missed calls. Tasha, Mom, even my dad, who usually stayed out of this kind of thing. There were voicemails. texts, WhatsApp messages, the whole circus. But I didn't check any of them right away. I just made coffee, sat down, and waited, because I knew at that moment everything had just changed. By the time I finally opened my messages around 10 a.m., the damage had clearly been done. There were 13 missed calls from Tasha to voice messages, both of which I skipped. A string of increasingly desperate texts followed, starting with confusion and quickly escalating into accusations. What is this? You're seriously threatening me with a lawyer for shopping. It was one day. You're rich? Get over yourself. Then, just as I was about to put the phone down, came the crown jewel. You'll regret doing this to your own sister. Mom's right. You've always thought you were better than us. I didn't reply. I'd said everything I needed to say in that email. A couple hours later, I got a calmer text from my mom. Can we please talk? Before this gets worse. You're blowing things out of proportion. That line, blowing things out of proportion, stuck with me. I didn't respond right away, but I did take a long walk around the block, trying to keep my hands from shaking. It wasn't rage I felt anymore. It was something quieter and colder, like the kind of disappointment that sets in after you realize someone's not going to change. I'd spent so many years giving them the benefit of the doubt, letting things slide, telling myself that family comes first, even when it meant burying my own needs. But standing out there on the sidewalk, hearing the buzz of my phone in my pocket, I realized something. They didn't need me to be generous. They expected it. Entitlement had become the norm. So I made another call, not to them, to the credit union where my sister had her account. I requested a formal record of every transfer she'd received from me over the past 2 years, every quick loan, every "can you help me out? I swear I'll pay you next week." Turns out she'd gotten over $17,000 total from me, and she'd never paid a cent back. I compiled all of it into a file. The evidence of unauthorized purchases, the past transfers, the screenshots of her texts, even the one where she joked last year that she should just marry rich or steal Ray's pin. It was meant to be funny at the time. It didn't feel funny now. That night, I got a knock on my apartment door. I checked the peephole. It was Mom. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there, heart thudding, staring at the woman who raised me and wondering how many times I'd excused things I shouldn't have. She knocked again, softer this time. "Ray, please, can we talk?" I opened the door a crack. She looked worn out, not angry, not even apologetic, just exhausted. She stepped back slightly when she saw my face. "I know you're upset," she said, "but this doesn't need to go any further. We're family. You don't sue your sister." I said nothing. She sighed, folding her arms like she was the one being hurt here. "She's young. She made a mistake. She's 26. I said quietly. "And this wasn't a mistake. It was theft." "She thought you'd be okay with it." I stared at her. "Would you be okay if someone did that to you?" Mom didn't answer. She just looked away like she was trying to remember the version of me that always caved. When she talked like this, "You always help," she whispered. "You always do the right thing." "Yeah," I said. And look where that got me. She shifted, uncomfortable. "Ray, she's just not like you. She doesn't have what you have. You're punishing her for not being as successful." That hit a nerve. "I'm punishing her," I repeated, "for stealing my money and for not even pretending to be." "Sorry." Mom looked like she wanted to say something more. Maybe another guilt trip, maybe another excuse, but she didn't. She just sighed and said, "If you go through with this, you'll tear the family apart." I looked her in the eyes and said, "The family tore itself apart a long time ago. I just stopped pretending it didn't." She left without another word. I locked the door. That night, the silence in my apartment was deafening. No calls, no knocks. Just quiet. It felt strange, like the calm after a storm, when you know more lightning could still be coming. And then the next morning, I got another message. This one wasn't from Mom or Tasha. It was from an old friend of mine, someone who worked at a local paper. They'd seen a post Tasha made on social media. A long, dramatic rant about toxic siblings and how money makes people think they're gods. She hadn't mentioned my name, but the details were so specific. Anyone who knew us would know exactly who she was talking about. I didn't reply. I didn't engage. But I saved the post because something inside me had changed quietly but permanently. And as much as it broke my heart to admit it, I knew I wasn't done. The post didn't go viral or anything. It wasn't public, just a long rant, half plea to her little corner of the internet. But it told me everything I needed to know. Tasha wasn't sorry, not even close. She was weaponizing sympathy, posing like a victim to people who didn't know the context. Crying, abuse, and control because I refused to let her treat me like her personal piggy bank anymore. A few of her friends even commented stuff like, "Wow, that's so toxic, and family should never use money to manipulate." One of them wrote, "Cut 'em off, girl. You don't need that kind of negativity." I didn't comment. I didn't send screenshots. I didn't try to defend myself, but I kept reading. I needed to see how far she'd go. About halfway down, she wrote, "Some people can't stand when you don't bow down to them anymore. My brother thinks I owe him my dignity because he's more successful, but I'm done being silent." It was funny in a sad way. That line, "done being silent," as if she'd ever once listened to anyone else. As if the dozen chances I'd given her, the money, the quiet grace I'd offered for years, meant nothing to her. The moment I set a boundary was the moment I became the villain. I closed the app and I opened the file again. The PDF was 28 pages now. Not just financial records and text messages, but voice notes, screenshots of time she admitted to buying. Things on my card just for now. Even the old Venmo notes that were supposed to be funny. THX Sugar Broy strikes again. Bless you, our bank account. Lol. It was all there. And it was time I did something with it. So I emailed my lawyer friend Josh. Josh had been in my life since college. Someone who knew what I'd been through with my family even before money was involved. He wasn't the kind of guy to rush into legal threats. And he'd warned me before, once you go down this road, there's no pretending afterward that things are normal. But when I sent him the folder and told him I wanted to take formal action, he didn't hesitate. He called me that evening. I read it. "All," he said. "You're not overreacting." "Thanks," I said quietly. "I just wanted to stop." "She's not going to stop," he said. "Not unless there's a consequence. And you've got plenty to work with here. Fraud, identity misuse, theft. You could press charges." I paused. That word charges made my stomach twist. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because she was me sister. We talked for another hour. Josh said we could start with a formal demand letter, legal but not litigious. It would spell out the amount, document the misuse, and outline the next steps. She'd have a chance to repay it or respond before anything more serious happened. I agreed. That night, he drafted it. The morning, I sent it. It went out at exactly 7 a.m., attached to a clean, professional email. Not angry, not bitter, just facts. I didn't hear anything that morning. Not a text, not a call. Around noon, I saw she deleted her post. By 3, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again 10 minutes later. Then again, I let it go. Then finally, a voicemail. I braced myself before listening, but nothing could have prepared me for the tone in her voice. It wasn't apologetic. It wasn't scared. It was furious. "You really went through with it," she snapped. After everything I've done for this family, you're seriously trying to ruin my life because of a shopping mistake. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You're not. You're bitter. And one day when you're old and alone, maybe you'll realize money doesn't buy loyalty. Click. That was it. No sorry, no admission, just blame. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. That night, my mom called. Ree? She said carefully. Can you come by? I think we need to talk in person. I almost said no. I almost blocked the number right there. But something told me I needed to go. Not for closure, not for peace, for clarity. I needed to look my family in the face and see it for what it really was, not what I'd hoped it could be. So, I drove. The house looked exactly the same as it always had. Same creaky porch, same dented mailbox, same half-dead plants on the windowsill. But when I stepped inside, it felt colder than ever. Tasha was already there, sitting at the dining table with her arms crossed, wearing a hoodie and no makeup, like she was trying to look smaller, more innocent. It was a performance. I knew that immediately. Mom was standing in the kitchen, nervously drying a cup that didn't need drying. No one spoke at first. Then Mom said, "Before you say anything, just listen." And that's when everything shifted, because the real story, the one behind the money, the entitlement. The years of silent resentment was about to come out, and I wasn't ready for how far it would go. I stood there in the doorway, arms still at my sides, my coat half zipped. The tension in the air was so thick I could hear the quiet hum of the refrigerator behind Mom, like it was the only thing breathing. Tasha sat at the dining room table, with that look she always wore when things didn't go her way. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes filled with sharp silence. I didn't say anything. I waited. Mom motioned toward the table. "Sit," she said softly, like we were about to break bread, and pray over it. I stayed standing. Tasha has something she wants to say. Mom added, looking at her expectantly. Tasha's lips tightened. "No, you wanted me to say it," she muttered. "I don't have anything to apologize for. I already said what I needed to." Mom's eyes widened. "Tasha, I didn't steal." "Okay," she snapped, standing now, her voice louder. "He gave you that card months ago. It was saved on the family tablet. I thought he'd taken it off. It wasn't like I hacked into his account." I stared at her, finally speaking. "You used it 12 times in one afternoon across 3 different stores. And then you smiled at me when I confronted you because I thought you'd understand." She snapped back. "You're always preaching about responsibility, about how money doesn't define you. So why does this matter so much? It's just money to you." "No," I said, quieter than she expected. "It's not just money. It's respect. It's trust. It's years of me being taken for granted by people who think family is a free pass." "You think you're so above everyone," she said, her eyes narrowing. "Because you got a job in tech and moved out. And now you think you're better than us." I never said I was better than anyone. I said, trying not to raise my voice, "But I'm allowed to not be a doormat." Mom stepped in, raising her hands. "Aita, can we please not do this like children? This is exactly why I wanted you both here, so we could talk, not attack." I turned to her. Mom, if this were anyone else, any friend, any coworker, you'd call it what it is, theft. But because it's Tasha, you're bending over backward to excuse it again." She didn't know what she was doing, Mom said, her voice rising with desperation. Yes, she did. I said, now calm in that bone-deep way that comes only after you've stopped hoping someone will change. She knew what she was doing. She's always known. And you've always helped her believe there are no consequences. Mom's mouth opened like she wanted to defend herself, but she didn't speak. I could see the struggle in her eyes. Between loyalty and denial, Tasha scoffed. This is pathetic. A cure. Seriously going to drag us into court over this over one day of shopping? It wasn't one day, I said. It was every day I said yes, and you took a little more. Every time you lied and called it a mistake. Every time I helped and you laughed behind my back. You've been building a debt for years. This is just the first time you got the receipt. Tasha went silent. Her hands clenched the edge of the chair she had risen from. But she didn't sit. Mom sighed heavily. So what happens now, Ray? What, are you just going to disappear from the family over this? No, I said. I'm going to set boundaries and stick to them. That means suing your sister, she asked bitterly. That means holding her accountable, I said. I sent the letter. She has a choice. Either she pays it back quietly, or we take it to court. You think that's going to fix anything? Tasha asked. You think suing your sister makes you righteous? No, I said, but it might finally make me free. Tasha rolled her eyes and stormed off down the hallway. A door slammed. I stood there with my mother. The silence, now not so much tense, as hollow. I tried, she said softly, looking down. I know you did, I replied, but trying isn't the same as changing. She looked up at me, and I could see something in her face that hadn't been there before. Maybe fear, maybe regret. Maybe the slow realization that the glue she thought was keeping this family together was actually just tape, and it had worn thin. I just wanted you to stay close, she whispered. We were never close, I said. Not really. I was just easier to lean on. The drive home was quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just felt a strange sense of peace. The kind that comes not from winning, but from finally stopping the fight you've been having with yourself for years. The fight to stay connected to people who drain you. The fight to keep forgiving people who never ask for forgiveness. The fight to prove your worth in a family that only sees you as a resource. A week passed, then two, and then one morning, I woke up to an email. Subject, repayment agreement. Tasha had replied. No apology, no admission of guilt. But attached was a PDF. A signed document agreeing to pay back the full amount over time. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Josh. He handled. The rest, I never heard from her again. My mom sent a few texts over the next few weeks. Small, neutral things. A picture of the dog, a reminder about Dad's birthday. I answered with simple one-liners. Nothing harsh, nothing emotional. Eventually, even those stopped. It wasn't an explosion. It was just silence. But in that silence, I found space. I traveled. For the first time in a while. Started a side project I'd been putting off. I met new people, reconnected with old ones. I learned how to say no without guilt. And most of all, I learned this. Family doesn't mean you owe them everything. It doesn't mean tolerating abuse or rewriting reality. It means showing up when it matters, not just when it's convenient or profitable. It means respect. It means boundaries. And if someone can't offer that, then maybe they were never really family to begin with. Sometimes freedom doesn't come from escaping strangers, it comes from standing up to the ones who know you best and still chose to use you. And I'll never let it happen.